I'm just the elephant in the room. What's your best excuse? I'm just the elephant in the room. Do you really wanna be the one to make this so uncomfortable tonight? When you could be the one to set the record straight, you think it's not the perfect time.
Asked the question I think a lot of people want to know. Who did Mr. Graham contact to get this property? How did he know about it on Wetipquin Road? Was it an elected official county?
I don't know if that answered.
I'm sorry.
He contacted DNR.
Right, well, there's a lot of, I've heard a lot since this came out, like, that certain people knew about this. Who knew about it before it happened? And was it something that, I talked to Delegate Otto, and I remember him telling me this has been going on for about a few years. And then I'm hearing now tonight that it's not a done deal. So who went to Annapolis and said, hey, this is Mr. Graham, he has this on Wetipquin Road, where a lot of people don't even know where it is. I mean, Delegate Beecham, he had to call me and ask me where it was in order to see it. So it's not something like seen by everybody. So who told him about this property?
Right. So all I can tell you is that the administration, DNR, was the party that entered into a contract with a private citizen to acquire land.
Okay.
All right, so that's the answer.
Okay.
Mr. Graham himself told me that he contacted DNR and he thought that DNR buying it was the best solution for his property.
So it was him. It wasn't any
Right.
elected official.
So back in 2022, 2023 is when this all started. The appraisals were done in 2023. So yeah, he thought that this was the best outcome
Thank you.
for these farms that he wanted to sell.
We're going to talk about what's happening in a place called Wetipquin. For those that have seen that word, it's Wetipquin. I'm what you would call a from there, not a come there. There's a lot of people who've moved down there, which is awesome. And since we've had our executive, she's made it very, very easy to get there as far as it goes with the roads and the dishes being cleaned out and the attention that she, along with our West Side Task Force and Neighborhood Alliance, has done. It's been great. It really has. But we want to talk about something that's going on down there in Wetipquin, and that's the Wetipquin Creek State Park, which is kind of unique because I never knew it was a creek. We thought it was a river when I was growing up, just in the neighborhood. How did this park even come about?
Right. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the place first and foremost.
Please,
so
please.
The 445, over 400 acres is owned by a gentleman named Donald Graham. And just to give you a little bit of background about Donald Graham, so if Donald Graham is a gentleman that has lived or has owned property down here, that piece of property has been in his family for generations. And when he took it over, he had an idea of what he wanted to do. Let me explain to you what this man has done in his lifetime. So he was an engineer, and he oil used to come in cans back in the day. And then now when we go and buy oil, it's in the plastic, with the little, spout and whatever. He not only designed that, but he owns the patent to that and also the machine that does it. So every bottle of oil or everything of oil that you buy, it's his design. So the man has done well for himself, and he's also designed a lot of other things. So he is an engineer. So he owns this piece of property with the house on it. And when he inherited it, he decided he was going to put, I would say hundreds of thousands, but I can be safe to say tens of thousands of dollars into that house. And what he has done is made sure that it has stayed and kept its historical presence, right? So it does have plumbing. It does have electric. However, everything else is to the T of what a revolutionary house would look like, right? His family would come down once a month. They'd spend Thanksgiving down there. He has children. He also built other houses on the property that are all historically accurate houses. There's a caretaker that he has that's on the property. And so he's kept this up. They have decided to, or he decided a while back, which had nothing to do with me, that, the state was looking for a place to put a state park. And, he had a property available that he was like, this would be a great thing for this. It was back in early 23, we brought DNR down and we took them to several locations. One of them was Poplar Hill. So, the old, prison release place. beautiful location, you know what I mean? So we took them
is.
there. They were not interested in that land. We took them over to Pirates Wharf and said, hey, what about a partnership park? We've done a lot of work. You could take it over as a state park. We're
Wow.
okay to do
Yeah,
that.
right.
Not interested in that.
Wow.
So there was several areas. We talked about, we were brainstorming different ideas. As a matter of fact, Greater Salisbury Committee on their 2030 plan, a state park is one of those things. Chris Eccleston was heading that up. So this has been on people's radar for a while, and we tried to do our due diligence, showing different properties, and we just kind of thought it was a dead issue. And then all of a sudden, Eastern Shore delegation has their meeting when session started, and we hear, hey, by the way, Wicomico County's getting a state park, and it's this Don Graham's property. I didn't know who Don Graham was. I didn't even know where it was. I still have never been on the property, so I've never even been down there. So I knew it was down Nanticoke Road. That's what we were told, somewhere down there. And we thought we were getting some like insider information because our attorney came in and said, well, I'll show you exactly where Don Graham's property is. What we understood at that point in time is, and we said, because we were kind of upset about the Pirates Wharf thing, we're like, Pirates Wharf is so close, and it's like already halfway done. Like, what's going on here? Is this a done deal? Yes, it's a done deal. Like, signatures have been, like, the ink has dried, signatures are done. Okay. So I said, all right. So then February comes, and they have the Board of Public Works. Now, I'm going to tell people, you may think that you have a say at the Board of Public Works meeting. The decision is already made before you go into the Board of Public Works meeting.
If you're on county level.
Yeah. I mean, when I go into the Board of Public Works meeting, I don't know if you've ever been to one of these meetings, but in it, there's three people. There's the comptroller, there's the treasurer, and there's the governor. So it's three people. These are not people that you're going to sit up there and start arguing with in the middle of everybody in the middle of the state house. Like, we're not going to do that. So, he brings me on. I'm actually on Zoom. I don't go in person, but we're on Zoom. And, we talk about this. And he said, I want to congratulate you for getting a state park because your leadership is what got us here. Now, I think what people have twisted is, you knew about it because he said your leadership. What he meant is that my leadership did start this. Like, we wanted to get a state park. We were bringing DNR down, and that's what he was talking about, is the fact of we wanted a state park here. I was about the what. I had nothing to do with the where. You see what I mean? So I think that's the biggest thing here, is that I think people are under the assumption that I was like trying to hide something, not telling the people on the west side. And I'm like, guys, I don't hide anything from the West Side. As a matter of fact, I made them more transparent by having the West Side Task Force. I want to know what's going on. And never in my life did I think that so many people would be, this concerned or upset. What I have thought about with DNR and what I'd like them to do, and I'm sure these are in your questions, but what my hope is with this is, because this is a done deal, DNR owes it to the people of our county to come down and say, this is what our intention is. Is this going to be like a Shad Landing where like people are going to be camping and coming in and out of here? Or is it going to be like a Pemberton Park where there may be an event, and there's trails, and it's just you enjoy the nature and you enjoy the property, and that's it. And I think that the people of the county deserve that. And so I think the lack of information as to what kind of state park it's going to be, I think is important to share. I just want to say this. For any homeowners out there or property owners, I know for a fact you would not want the government coming in and telling you who you could sell your property to, what you're doing with your property. People don't like that at all. You know what I mean? And so for people to sit here and say, well, Mr. Graham, he should have told the people of Wicomico County. Well, maybe he should have, but he doesn't owe that to the people of Wicomico County.
Not his property.
No, that's his property with the state of Maryland.
Well, I can say, as being a original tip necker, and those from down to Wetipquin knows what a tip necker is, I'd never been on that property. And I'm talking about, I was born like less than a block from this place. I didn't even know it existed. Why? Because, and anybody who's from down there can say the same thing, that was their property. That was that family's property. I had a delegate actually give me a call yesterday actually, and asked me, hey, where exactly is this? Now again, this is after the state already has it. All right, it's hidden. Not many people get to go there. So for Mr. Graham to actually say this isn't something that y'all saw from the road. You know what I mean?
Right.
He said, hey, this is where we're gonna put a park at. And yes, there are a lot of questions. The unique thing that I did notice yesterday while looking at good old Facebook and Meta is they've already gotten the details and description of what's going to be there. And
I don't know if I would necessarily trust that too, because I know that there was something about the kayaking and paddleboarding, and
yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be the case or
Could
not.
have to- yeah.
But I really would like DNR to come down, and I think that would help ease some people's minds, as to what
Absolutely.
exactly is going there. The one thing that is good is that he didn't sell it to a developer. We're not getting a development down there. We're not getting a bunch of houses. We're not destroying nature. This was a way for him to have that legacy of that beautiful property live on in a way that, other
preserve
people
the
will be
land.
able to, preserve land and for other people to enjoy, And so I really think the house is really what sold it because they want to keep it in that historical trust. So I think, for what he's done and the money that he's put into that, I know what delegate you're talking about because he called me yesterday too. He walked onto the property. He said, Miss G, if you walk onto that property and your eyes are closed and you open your eyes, you feel like you're in Williamsburg. The whole idea is to keep that property beautiful, right? And keep that property, the historic value of that property. They're not going to come in and start putting in, all kinds of crazy stuff, and you're going to have water slides and doing all kinds of wild stuff like an Assateague or like Shad Landing or something like that. It's not going to be like that. So I think it is a positive. I do think it's a positive. I understand the fear that people have. They moved to Wetipquin not because they want to have a ton of neighbors and a ton of traffic, right? They like that quiet, peaceful atmosphere, and I totally understand that. I don't necessarily think this is going to take away from that. I really hope not anyway.
Right.
But I do think that DNR needs to give us some answers, and they're being a little unresponsive with some things, which is a bit frustrating to me because I feel like they do owe the county a little bit of an explanation, especially how it was done. I mean, it would have been nice, like, hey, here's a heads up before the ink has dried, but we just didn't get that, unfortunately.
But how does a state that's so deep in the red as we are right now be able to afford a $3 million bill for this?
Right.
When we have so many parks already down there.
Right. So I think the thing to keep in mind is, and I know this is going to sound crazy, the best answer I have is it's different pots of money. So it's not part of the operating budget necessarily. It's part of, it's in an acquisition, type account. So there's money set aside in different accounts, right? And so this is from a different account. This is not the, budget that he just passed or anything like that. So it's still tax money. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, it absolutely is. But the best answer I have is that, there was acquisition money for this kind of set off to the side. And so that's the money that was used.
Thank you. Now, the president of the county council, John Cannon, did tell me the other day that a letter has been sent to the state to kind of halt everything for a little bit.
I do not believe that the council has the ability to write to DNR and ask them to halt anything. They don't have the ability or, right is the wrong word, but they don't have the right to ask them to do that. This is a transaction between two people that we are not privy to. So if this would be an example, like you have your house, right? And let's say you want to sell your house and you have neighbors that come in and you're really happy about these people that are going to be coming in. And what if your neighbors aren't happy? Are you going to stop the sale of your house because your neighbors aren't thrilled with who's moving next door? If you got a letter from your neighbor saying, hey, can you please halt and not sell your house? You're like, no, I got to move. I got a job I got to go do, or I've got this to go do. You're not going to do that. And so that's where this kind of falls in. And I understand that the people are upset, but unfortunately in this case, I don't have, a way to stop it. I read the letter by the council. I thought it was a bit presumptuous to assume that we have the ability to stop a sale. I don't think that they're going to halt any process, for the people of the county. And I'm not saying I agree with that, but I just don't think it's going to happen. We find out that it's a private citizen. We're just really, our hands are kind of tied. There's really not much I can do.
That's like someone telling you can't do what you want to do with your home.
Right, exactly. Like, sorry, you can't sell that property because we don't want you to. Well, that's tough. It's mine. You know what I mean? It's my property.
Exactly.
So I'm just going to put it to you this way. I need people, if they're watching this, put yourself in the shoes of Mr. Graham. You know what I mean? Here it is that he has found a way to preserve the property that he has loved very, very much, to make sure trees aren't going to be cut down, to make sure that they're not going to develop it, with housing and things like that. And I think that he really thought he was doing a great thing for this county. And it really frustrates me. And I get why people are concerned. I get that. And I don't want people to think that I don't think their concerns are valid. But it does, kind of hurt my heart a little bit, because here is a gentleman that has this beautiful piece of property that is willing to share it with the people of the county. And I feel like since the very beginning, there's just been nothing but grief.
Here's one of the tough questions that the people out there want to know as far as from you, being their representative, being their executive. Are you for or against having this park?
I am for having a park in Wicomico County. I want to have a state park in Wicomico County. I don't like being the only county that doesn't have it.
Right.
And we were excited to think that we were getting that, and something that we could say, hey, even though we didn't have anything to do with it, it's still something that I can say, hey, while I was executive, this was able to happen, As far as the where, it's one of those things where I could sit here and complain about the where. I think this is what concerns me. When I think of a state park, I think of easily accessible. And sometimes I don't find, all the way down, Nanticoke Road and down that way, always easy accessible. Cell service is a little tricky down there, so I'm hoping that this will promote, getting more cell service down there.
Interesting.
For me, honestly, I think it's just too early to speak. I know that there are a lot of people that are really super excited about it, but I also know that there's a handful that are concerned, and rightfully so. So, and I hear their concerns, but I am going to say, no matter where we were to put it, no matter where, I think that you would have people, there would be some complaints from here, there, everywhere.
With having this state park, would that take away from funding that I know Parks and Rec and Steve Miller have worked diligently on getting for that park? Will that take away from that?
No, because it's two totally separate things. I mean, no county revenues are going into the state park. Not one dime is going into it because it's a state entity. So it's going to be a state-owned property. We don't put, funds into the state property.
That includes upkeep and...
upkeep is all done by the state.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is all state employee. It's all, state, run and whatever else. So it doesn't take away from our parks. I can put out there as much as I want, but you're always going to have people that are spinning it the wrong way, or making things sound the way that making it sound in a negative way. I just want everybody to know we did not hide anything from you. We were kind of dumbfounded when we found out about it, which was in January when session started. February was Public Works, and since then, we've had some uprise, about it, and I get it, and I get your concerns. So that's why I'm hoping to get DNR down here. I'm hoping that they will, adhere to my request, and hopefully they'll at least give us some information, so that way people can, we can ask those questions. What's going to happen with the right of way? What's going to happen with the ditches?
Sure.
How are we going to handle, the roads taking in more traffic? Is there going to be another entrance? Are they going to do a different entrance? We don't know. So,
as always, the executive has never been a person that says, no, I won't talk about this. He's always been ready, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thanks for having me on.
We definitely appreciate you. We thank you for your transparency, and thank you for your work, and definitely looking forward to your next term.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate our conversations on this. And, it's good. Prayers now. Perfect. Thank God you can take over. So, a little over a year ago, we heard whisperings of, a state park is coming to Wicomico County, the only county in the state that doesn't have a state park. Wow, that's really cool. We had no idea where it was going. That's all we heard was state park coming to Wicomico County. Then the information was released where it was coming, and we got the information right about the same time all you guys got all the information. And so, of course, it took us by surprise. Wow, why did they pick there? That's weird. All the other properties we have in this county, and they picked this place. Well, let's find out what's going on. Well, then we finally, President Cannon emailed Secretary Kurtz and said, hey, we got a lot of questions. The citizens are rightfully upset. They've got a lot of questions. Can we have a conversation? So back in May, we had a Zoom meeting with Secretary Kurtz and his team. Were you guys on that? Yeah, Johnny Mouse was on that one. There was a dozen or so people on there, and we asked the normal questions. What's going on? When is it going on? And they said, we're going to have a public meeting after the deal is done in June. Okay, well, that was in May. June passed, July passed, it's now August. As Delegate Adams alluded to, the deal's not done. So now where are we? The answer is, we don't know.
Isn't that ridiculous? That's ridiculous.
So I was talking to a guy the other day about something that's going on in the county, and he's relaying all this crazy information. And I stopped him and I said, let me ask you something. Is the government involved in this? And he goes, yeah. And I said, there's the problem. That's the problem. So hopefully we can get some answers. As these guys said, the meeting on the 23rd would be a great opportunity to ask the questions. Please be respectful. Thank you, Delegate Hutchinson, for advancing the questions to them so they can be prepared. Because I can tell you from being on the county council, there's nothing like being in front of a TV camera and getting a surprise question that you could have gotten all your information together and you know.
That's what Mr. Atkins did.
Yeah, right.
Like Tom Hutchinson, as Chris said, I live in Dorchester County. So Chris and I represent a very large district, which is the west side of Wacomico, all of Talbot County. I have most of Dorchester County, 2/3 of Caroline County. But your concerns here are just as important to us. And when I heard a lot about the feedback about the park, it certainly caught my attention. Chris happens to live here in the county, and he's actually the chair of the Wacomico delegation too. So this is, you know, really truly in his backyard as well. So, you know, it's interesting you brought up Bill Burton Fishing Pier, because that's something that I'm working on in Dorchester County right now, because DNR wants to rebuild. They want to tear down that old bridge across the Chop Tank and build a new pier, but build the pier on the other side of the bridge where the Cambridge Harbor development is going on. But I keep going back to DNR and saying, you have to engage the community, because if they put it back on the other side, that community would have just come out with pitchforks, because there's no parking for anybody over there. We had DNR, including the secretary, down in Dorchester about two and a half, maybe 3 weeks ago. And I kept even saying to him then, I said, when are you going to have the public engagement about this? I mean, we've now, I think, made the decision that that's where we're going to do that. So at the conclusion of that meeting, I said, hey, look, I know that there's a lot of concern on the west side about the new park. And he said, set it up. I'd love to have him come down to do that. And I happened to be at a Delmarva Conservative Movement meeting, met with Dave, came down here. Dave took me for a drive around the property, which was great, took me onto the property. You know, the thing that the secretary said to me, and I don't understand this terminology necessarily, but you know, it was interesting. His reaction was, I'm surprised they're so concerned, because this is going to be a different park than our typical state parks. It's going to be a reservation only park. It won't be a park where people can just show up, you know, let's make a day trip down to, you know, to the west side and go up to the park. And a lot of it around the fact that, because it's in the critical areas, he goes, we can't even build a parking lot in there. So I don't know all of those plans. He does plan to bring his planning team down to go through that. But the thing that really caught my attention is when we did go onto the property and I saw the historic homes that are on the property. And I live in Dorchester County, where Harriet Tubman is queen. And there's the Federal Visitor Center not too far from where I used to live, which does attract a lot of bus tours. And you know, so that's a concern I have, is that when they say reservation, does that mean then they could bring a 52-passenger bus down a very narrow road and, you know, come on into the property, and what they would be able to do there on the property. So working with Delegate Adams, we both were able to get the secretary to come down here. So I think the 23rd is really the big meeting. I certainly wanted to be here tonight to make sure that they're prepared and know the flavor.
People are all for having maintaining the historic value of that property on the other side of the creek. But as soon as it became on the other, you know, it's not contiguous, it's totally separate. So the piece from Deep Branch Road in Spry Larmer I don't understand why that's, just because Don Graham over a period of years acquired those properties doesn't make it part of a park. The park could absolutely be, and I would probably support the fact if it was just the old house and what he's done over there, which is actually magnificent. But to have a park that's separated by a river, I don't see how that's, you know, I don't see the value. And I think that the state has other properties that they haven't done anything with anyway, hence Poplar Hill. I mean, they own that, why not make that the state park?
I don't know the internet, I think they read it.
I saw
Uh-huh.
it.
There you go.
Yes,
Okay, I
it's
saw
state.
it. Back there.
I'm just listening. I don't even know where to start. Okay, so parking lots not being built in critical areas, they're doing it at code. That's critical areas, and they're putting a parking lot there, right? Yep. Okay, so that's out of the question. They can do whatever they want. The biggest thing is, the people that are here and concerned have put a lot of money into the properties that they are living on this creek. Spent a lot of money, and not for public consumption, not for public viewing, everybody's sitting back off the road. And we bought these properties to get away from people, right? So I'm always fighting hunters that are being dropped off, people who have told me that, no, this is not your land. And, people that they're telling me, oh, I know where the lines are. No, they don't. Deer being shot, I don't mean to point, deer being shot. I don't care to have people coming up to my house and saying, oh, I lost a deer, do you mind if I go through your woods? I'm a kind person, and I don't like to see deer wasted. I don't like to see them hurt. We get enough of that from the road. They do come back to my property. I don't care to have the public back there. Maybe a solution is to have, if they do open it to hunting, to allow the adjacent landowners to hunt that property instead of the public. What would it matter to them who hunted it, right? Unless there's a lottery and they're trying to make money. So talk to me, about that. I don't want people coming up on the creek bank to my house with their emergency. She's right about the jet skis. I hear them all the time. I don't like it. They're tearing up the banks. They're just with they're zipping around. It winds. They're zipping around there. There's geese and duck in there, and I don't care to have more people out in front of my house. We bought this property and built this house to have peace. Now you say it might be years before the state park is even, I don't care to worry about that for the next 5 years. I don't care to stress about it, because I'm stressing about it, right? And the property line, I'm already figuring out how to combat this, because I don't think we will have a say whatsoever in this. You don't know if the contract's been signed.
I know that it has not been settled.
That's different. Sales contract, and then you go to settlement. So if oh great. If
Calm down.
Just in time.
I want to know, settlement, it hasn't gone to settlement, but has the contract been signed? I can't get an answer out of Dana Patera. Can't get an answer out of, what's her face that's head of Maryland State Parks? What's her name?
It's,
There's no answers coming. So I don't care to worry about this and stress about it for the next however many years it takes for them to set this up. And it's not going to be good. If the public is allowed back next to my property, I can promise you it's not going to be good. Because I'm going to have a straight line to DNR, and I will call them every minute that I see somebody back there. Now, do I want to deal with that? Do I want to keep looking out my window and looking over to that property to see who's walking around? No, I don't. I don't want to do that. Mr. King has been very gracious in letting me know when somebody's supposed to come back there. But he's not going to be able to do that when DNR, buys it. So, if I'm tired of worrying about whether the contract has been signed. Because I know once that contract has been signed, I'm going into a different mode. Okay?
That's why I sat in front.
That's right, Doc, that's right, you know how this stuff goes. Yeah, I gotta pick on you.
Yeah. So my land is right next to the land that is part of Springs Place on Deep Branch. And Deep Branch Road and Wetipquin Road are small gravel roads. We do not have any lines down the center. A lot of times people have to kind of get off the road on those.
Sure.
And so anytime you have a lot of traffic, it's like a little concerning. Also, for me, I'm not against deer hunting at all. I mean, I think we need to get the herds down a little bit more, but I don't know how that's going to be handled. I've talked to a lot of different people, and some people say, oh, you won't have a problem, DNR doesn't allow hunting. And I'm thinking,
They're doing some state works.
that's what I thought too.
do a lot of those.
Exactly. So, I mean, like, I've heard lottery, I've heard they don't, I've heard they do. Being that my property is adjacent to that, if a deer is shot and runs onto my property, I know that hunter's gonna be on my property. And I just, for my safety, for my concerns, I wanna know who's on my property. I think it's important.
Yes, sir.
My name's Dan Seaman. I also live adjacent to the property on the Spry-Larmore section of it, near Ginny's, but on the Spry-Larmore section of it. The property actually backs up to my kitchen window, well, almost to the back of my kitchen window. Now, I don't even know if that section is going to be part of the park or not. It happens to be on the wedge that is within Spry-Larmore, but that is part of Don Graham's property there.
Okay.
I frequently talk to Dave when I hunt the property. In the past. But that is one of the concerns that I have, and Ginny probably has as well, is what's it going to do to our property values if this comes in? What's it going to do to my property value? I look at it, and I've looked at it for quite a while as, you know, I want to farm my land with livestock, which I have 11.5 acres, and I would like to do that as well. But if there's going to be hunters there that are going to be coming adjacent to my property, you know, what are the implications there with the liability that I have or don't have? What goes on with that? And, you know, is the state park actually going to be on both sides of the creek, Deep Branch Creek there? It honestly doesn't make sense to have a path go across the creek unless you're going to build a bridge, and well, that's a whole lot more money we're talking about there.
I don't think there'll be any bridge.
Yeah, or is there going to be access on that side? Because that would be on the backside of my property, Deep Branch, or on Deep Branch or Spry-Larmore, like with Ginny's. That creates a whole lot other entry points there and a lot more, I guess, road traffic where the infrastructure just isn't there at this point.